Hey there, and welcome. Today, we're going to talk about one of the most essential and maybe most underrated pieces of tech on the entire planet, the transformer. Seriously, you see them everywhere, on power poles and your phone charger. But have you ever really stopped to wonder how they actually work?
Think about it. It's basically a magic box, right? You've got electricity going in at one voltage and coming out at a totally different voltage. And the craziest part? There are zero moving parts inside. No gears, no spinning bits, nothing. So how in the world does it pull off this trick?
All right, so what's the big secret? Well, it's not what you might think. It's not some crazy complicated machine. It's actually way more elegant than that. Let's pull back the curtain.
Yep, you heard that right. The entire operation of every single transformer on Earth, from those giant beasts you see at substations, all the way down to the tiny block that charges your laptop, it all boils down to one single beautiful law of physics.
And that law, the one that rules them all, is Faraday's law of induction. This is it. This is the absolute bedrock. If you can get your head around this one law, you've basically cracked the code on how transformers work. So let's dive in.
Okay, so here's the formula. Now, don't let the symbols scare you. It's actually pretty straightforward. We have E equals negative N times d phi by dt. So what does that all mean? Well, E is the voltage we're trying to create. N is super simple. It's just the number of times we've wrapped a wire into a coil. And that Greek letter phi or phi, that's the magnetic flux, basically the magnetic field. And T, well, that's just time.
The real magic here is in that d phi dt part. That little d just means change in. So it's the change in the magnetic field over the change in time. The key is the magnetic field can't just sit there. It has to be pulsing, shifting, changing. And when you have that changing magnetic field passing through a coil of wire, poof, a voltage just appears. And the more turns of wire you have, or the faster that field changes, the more voltage you get. That is the whole secret right there.
Okay, so that's the beautiful physics. But how do you go from that neat little law to actually building something in the real world? Well, we're going to do it. We're going to build up the single most important equation for any transformer designer step by step, starting right from Faraday's law.
All right, step one, super easy. We start right here with our foundation, Faraday's law. Everything, and I mean everything we're about to do comes directly from this principle. It's our launch pad.
Step 2. Let's get real. The power coming out of your wall socket is alternating current, or AC. It goes back and forth in this nice, smooth wave. Well, that means the magnetic field it creates is also going to follow that same exact wave-like pattern. And in math, we have a perfect way to describe that, a sine wave.
Okay, now for a tiny bit of calculus, but don't click away. We just care about the result. To find that rate of change, that ddt from Faraday's law, we take what's called a derivative. All you really need to know is that this is the mathematical step that takes us from talking about the magnetic field to talking about the actual voltage we can use.
So that gives us the peak voltage, which is cool, but it's not what engineers actually use day to day. They use an average value called RMS. To get from peak to RMS, we do a little substitution and divide by the square root of 2. And when all the mathematical dust settles, this is where that mysterious number comes from, 4.44. If you've ever seen that in a textbook and wondered where it came from, well, now you know. And for our final step, we need to connect all this theory to the actual physical thing. That abstract idea of magnetic flux? Well, it depends on two very real things. First, the material of the iron core itself, how much magnetic energy it can handle, which we call Bmax. And second, just how big that core is, its cross-sectional area, A.
And boom! Here we are. After all that, we've arrived at the universal EMF equation. This thing is the master blueprint. It tells us the RMS voltage, E, is simply our magic number 4.44 times the frequency F times the number of wire turns N times the core's material limit B max times the core's physical area A. Everything you need to design a transformer is laid out right there.
So we've got this awesome equation. But what happens if you, use it wrong? What happens when the math tells you to do something that just doesn't make sense in the real world? Let's run a little thought experiment, because this is where things can get, let's just say, dramatic.
So let's play engineer for a second. Say we need to build a transformer for a standard 230-volt 50-hertz system. But, we're feeling a bit lazy. We decide, let's just use 2 turns of wire. How bad could it be? Well, our new equation can tell us exactly how bad.
And the answer is kind of hilarious. You plug in those numbers, you solve for the core area A, and you get 0.345 square meters. That is huge. We're talking about an iron core with a cross-section bigger than a family-sized pizza box. It's completely absurd.
Oh, but it gets so much worse than just being big. A design this bad would instantly saturate the core. It would try to pull thousands of amps from the outlet. All that power would have nowhere to go except to turn directly into heat. You haven't built a transformer, you've built a very large, very expensive device designed to have a catastrophic meltdown.
Okay, so that little horror story proves a really important point. Our amazing equation is perfect, but it describes a perfect world. And our world, well, it's not perfect. Real-world engineering is all about dealing with the messy imperfections and the energy losses that our ideal model just ignores.
So let's just look at the difference. In Faraday's ideal world, the core is perfect and power in equals power out. Simple. But here in our world, that iron core gets hot. It has imperfections. This means power in is actually power out plus a bunch of losses. And the whole game for real engineers is getting those losses as close to zero as possible.
And this brings us to a really crucial insight. Faraday's law is brilliant at telling us how to get the voltage we want, but it's completely silent about the energy that gets wasted just by forcing the magnetic field in that iron core to flip back and forth 50 or 60 times a second. That's a whole other problem.
That problem has a name, hysteresis loss, and here's the equation for it. What's fascinating about this one is that it wasn't elegantly derived from pure physics like Faraday's law was. Nope. This is what we call an empirical formula. It's more like a recipe, figured out through tons of real-world experiments to predict how much energy gets wasted as heat every time those magnetic domains in the iron resist being flipped.
And hysteresis isn't the only energy thief. You've also got copper loss. That's just plain old heat from the resistance in the copper wires themselves, and you've got eddy current loss, another sneaky way the core wastes energy. A real engineer has to juggle all of these things just to make a transformer that doesn't, melt.
So let's tie this all together. Here's the big takeaway. Faraday's law is the elegant, simple blueprint. It's the stroke of genius that tells us this whole thing is even possible. But it's the nitty-gritty, messy, real-world science of materials and all those other equations for losses that actually let us build these things so they work efficiently and don't catch on fire.
Which leaves us with a pretty cool question to think about, right? Our whole world is screaming for everything to be smaller, faster, more efficient, but this foundational technology is still bound by physics figured out over a century ago. So the next big breakthrough isn't going to come from rewriting Faraday's law. That's rock solid. It's going to come from incredibly clever engineers finding new ways to cheat, bend, and work around all those messy real-world limits.
Well, I guess we are done with the main content part of this video, but if you are hungry for more, feel free to just keep watching for a little talk on creator economy.
All right, let's talk about the creator economy. Because it's not just about influencers and silly viral videos anymore, right? It has become this massive, complex, and honestly, incredibly profitable professional world. So in this explainer, we're going to break down the actual blueprint for building a real business as a creator. How to go from just a hobbyist to a strategic business owner.
So let's just start with one number, a big one. $182 billion. That's what the creator economy is worth right now, globally. I mean, that's a staggering number. It's bigger than the entire economy of a lot of countries. And it's the loudest signal you could possibly get that this isn't some niche little industry anymore. This is a global profession.
So yeah, a number like that tells you we are way past calling this a trend. This is a fundamental economic shift. It's like a modern gold rush. And, just like any gold rush, there's a huge, huge opportunity for people who know where to look, and more importantly, how to look. The chance to build a real, sustainable, and profitable business has literally never been better.
But that brings up the big, crucial question, right? In a world with millions of creators all fighting for eyeballs, how do you actually succeed? How do you find that vein of pure gold instead of just, spending years of your life digging in the dirt and finding nothing? Well, that's exactly what we're here to talk about, the strategy that actually wins.
Okay, section 1. First things first. Let's really get a handle on just how big and, frankly, how stable this new economy really is. Because understanding the sheer scale of the opportunity, well, that's the first step to actually being able to grab a piece of it. And the data here is pretty eye-opening.
Just look at this. This chart is basically the engine room of the whole creator economy, YouTube's ad revenue. From 2017 to 2024, it shot up by over 400%. It jumped from around $8 billion to over $35 billion a year. That's not just growth, my friends. That is an absolute explosion. It proves that the big advertisers are all in, and they're creating the solid financial bedrock that supports millions of creators all over the world.
But here's the thing. The foundation is even stronger than just ads. A whole ecosystem for making money has popped up. You know, sponsorships often bring in more than ad revenue for bigger creators. Affiliate marketing? That's grown into a $27 billion industry on its own. Then you add in subscriptions from places like Patreon and selling your own digital products, and you start to see the real strength. This diversity is everything. It makes your business resilient and gives you so many different ways to be profitable.
And this quote, I think it just nails it. It perfectly captures what all that data is telling us. The creator economy is not some fragile little bubble that's about to pop. No way. It's a powerful, multi-billion-dollar engine fueled by ads, by direct sales, by affiliate money, and it's driving both culture and commerce. And honestly, all the signs are pointing to it just getting faster.
Okay, so we've established the opportunity is huge. It's real. But that leads us to the big elephant in the room, the one fear that stops so many people from even starting. Competition. So let's just dive right in and tackle this saturation paradox head on.
Come on, you've probably thought this yourself. I know I have. With the market set to more than double in the next few years, won't millions more people just flood the platforms? Is it even possible to get noticed anymore? Is it just too late to the party? It's a totally fair question, but the answer is a lot more interesting than you might think.
This right here is the core conflict, the dilemma that every creator faces. On one hand, you have this massive opportunity. The market is screaming that if you have deep, specialized knowledge, it's an incredibly valuable asset. But on the other hand, the risk is real. Your success isn't guaranteed. It's controlled by these algorithmic gatekeepers, and it demands a whole new set of skills you probably never learned in school.
Okay, so here's the secret. Here's the shift. In a crowded, saturated market, you don't win by being lucky. You win by being strategically, measurably better. And on a platform like YouTube, the algorithm basically defines better with two main numbers. First, click-through rate, or CTR. When people see your video, what percentage of them actually click on it? And second, audience retention. Once they click, how long do they stick around and watch? If you can master those two numbers, saturation suddenly becomes your advantage, not your enemy.
Which brings us to the solution. If winning is all about being systematically better, then guess what? You need a system. The answer is not to just work harder, post more videos, and cross your fingers. No, it's about working smarter with a proven blueprint for success. And the core of this whole blueprint is a fundamental shift in your mindset. It's about moving away from being a personality-driven creator, someone who has to be on and charismatic on camera all the time, to being a system-driven business owner. This is the whole idea behind things like faceless channels, where you can build a hugely profitable asset in a valuable niche without ever having to show your face. The content is the star, not you.
So what does this system actually look like? Well, it's basically a four-step process, like a content assembly line. Step 1, you identify high-profit niches. These are topics where advertisers pay more to show ads. That's a high CPM, which means you earn way more money for every 1,000 views. Step 2, you systematize your video production with templates. Step 3, you optimize every single video for those two magic metrics, CTR and retention. And finally, Step 4, you scale and outsource the whole thing by building a team.
So these are the core ideas. Think about it this way. It's about making the most money possible from every single viewer, not just chasing big, flashy view counts. It's about using templates so your quality is consistently high every single time. It's about mastering SEO, so the YouTube algorithm basically becomes your full-time marketing department, working for you 24/7. And the ultimate goal? It's about building a true business asset, a system that makes you money even when you're on vacation.
Look, having a blueprint is fantastic, but you also need the right tools to actually build the house. This is how you get that true, what some might call an unfair advantage over all the competition that's still just winging it.
So that foundational blueprint we've been talking about, it's all laid out in a program called Tube Mastery and Monetization. It is literally designed to be a complete, step-by-step roadmap that takes you from knowing nothing to managing a scalable, hands-off content business. It gives you the entire strategy from picking your niche all the way to hiring your team. And to really put the pedal to the metal, you pair that blueprint with some serious power tools, and that's where technology comes in. Software like VidIQ and TubeMagic, they're built to automate and optimize the hardest parts of this whole process, things like keyword research, writing scripts, SEO, so you can execute the blueprint way faster and much more effectively.
And look, you don't have to take my word for it. The proof is in who's using these tools. A tool like VidIQ isn't just for beginners. It's trusted by some of the absolute biggest and most successful creators on the planet. I mean, we're talking giants like Ali Abdaal, Think Media, Ryan Trahan. When creators at that level are relying on a tool, that's a pretty powerful signal that it works.
This table really shows you why specialized tools are such a game changer. A generic AI, it's going to give you generic, boring output. But a specialized AI like TubeMagic, it actually learns and matches the specific voice of your channel. Its SEO tools are built to compete with the best pro-level software. And here's the killer feature. It trains itself on your own best-performing videos, creating this feedback loop that just gets better and better. It's an absolute game changer for scaling up quality content.
So you've got the blueprint. You've got the tools. What's the end result? What's the big payoff? Well, it's a complete transformation of who you are. You go from a creator, grinding it out day after day, to the CEO of your own content empire.
See, the end game here isn't about making videos forever. It's about building a system that makes the videos for you. This frees you up to focus on the big picture strategy, not the daily grind. You can manage a global team of freelancers, scriptwriters, editors, voice artists. You can scale up to multiple channels, even in different languages. This is the real goal, achieving true financial and location independence.
Now, let's be real for a second. It's important to be realistic. A system like this gives you the map, but it's not going to do the work for you. You still have to be the one to drive the car, to navigate the bumps in the road, and to accept the risks that come with any business. But it gives you a proven path in what can be a really chaotic world. And you know what they say? The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is right now.
And that leaves us with one final kind of mind-bending question. As these systems and these AI tools get so powerful that they can automate almost everything from the script to the SEO, what's left for us? What is the human's unique contribution? Once that content assembly line is humming along perfectly, what's the role of the CEO? Is it strategy? Is it taste? Creative vision? As you think about building your own content empire, it's a question worth thinking about. What is our role when the machine gets this good?